Hey, this is Taylor Ellwood, and welcome to my not so great um, video in terms of lighting. You work with what you got. Well, I thought today that I would go and explore the topic of how to be present with and work through your fear because let me tell you, right now, I'm definitely feeling some fear in my life. I mean, I've I've gone ahead with the mediation with my soon-to-be ex-wife. It was very amicable, and in fact, the mediator said, it was the easiest one he'd ever done. Well, hey, great for us. But at the same time, it's kind of like when you go through a transition like divorce or anything else for that matter, it is a time of great fear. In my case, the fear is, of course, well, what's going to end up happening to me. Now, as a magician, I can tell you that I'm definitely working my magic, but at the same time, I have to acknowledge that fear. And when you feel fear, you have two primal choices. The first choice is you either let that fear define you and control you, and and in that case, it's that might be me like staying in bed all day or watching Netflix and not really doing anything, or playing video games but not really doing anything to address my situation. Or it might be choosing to take a job at a call center, which I really don't want to do, but because that would be the safe, convenient route, right? um, in my case, I'm not choosing to do that. In fact, I'm choosing to take the opposite route, where I'm acknowledging the fear as it comes up, but I am choosing to make some proactive choices in my life, as proactive as they can be, and make some changes. One of the changes that I've made is, if you look below in the description, you look down, you're going to see there are some links to some new services that I'm offering via Magical Experiments. And, if you want a consult or a tarot reading or anything like that, check those services out. Anyway, in my case, I opted to start doing Doordash, for example. I did my first week of Doordash last week. I got myself out the door and I made the choice to just, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I need to bring some money in fast. The end benefit of that is that I will be out of debt by the end of this week, which is really good for me because then, it's kind of like everything moving forward, it's save some money moving forward, all that other stuff. So, even though my circumstances have changed in a lot of ways, in some ways they're already improving because I'm not letting my fear control me. Instead, I'm being present with it. I'm acknowledging it when it comes up. Like when I'm driving, sometimes I feel a moment of fear. And I'm just like, okay, here it is. And I'm going to release that fear. I'm going to acknowledge it and I'm going to release it and I'm going to keep moving forward. And of course, I'm doing my Taoist meditation each day as well to help with the inner dissolving. I'm dissolving the blockages between my head and my heart. Because, there are a lot of blockages right now. I mean, when you go through an experience like divorce, you kind of have this moment of shock that goes through you because you're changing out of your status quo into something new and you don't know what that new is, not really. In some cases you might still retain a lot of the stuff before, like if you're working at a regular job or whatever, that might not change, but like in my case everything's changed. I moved out of my home. While I'm still writing my books and all that, I'm definitely having to bring in additional income. And so one of the other things that I'm doing too is I'm looking into freelance writing and editing. I'm going to have a site up soon for that, and I'll mention it on here. I mean, you guys aren't necessarily my clientele, but if you know somebody who is, you'll know when you see it. The thing is like I'm putting myself out there. I'm making that choice, and so what I'm doing is each time when I feel that fear, I'm either using techniques from the Sedona method or ACT, or doing the Taoist meditation, and I'm just acknowledging and being present with that fear, but also dissolving it and letting it go and moving forward. Because it's that, or I let that fear define me. And I'm really using that fear to motivate me too, because it's kind of like, well, I don't necessarily want to do X, Y, and Z forever. Well, if I don't want to do that, then I have to do something about it. No one else is going to do it for me. No one's going to No one's going to part the clouds and send a ray of sunshine down. Well, they might, but I mean, nothing's going to be automatically solved for me. And I mean, that's true of anything. And of course, that's where you start looking too at your magic and you say, okay, well, what can I do with magic to address this? And so in the case of the magical workings, I've been using the pentacles that I have to help with generating some opportunities, opening some doors for me, and I think that's really helped because when I started looking into the freelancing, and I initially went with like Fiverr.com, which is a content mill, and I had a friend who does freelance writing reach out, and he's like, "Dude, there's a better way." But so I followed up with him and started talking, and so this week I've been learning about freelance writing and how it could be like a possible avenue to get me to a place where instead of driving around and dropping off meals, I'm writing articles and making money from that. And at the end of the day, I don't know for sure what's going to happen. I could do a tarot reading on it, and I can get some ideas and direction. But at the end of the day, I mean, it ultimately comes down to this: you have to define you define yourself by your actions, by your choices, by what you do or don't do. So for me right now, I'm just putting myself out there each and every day. I mean, even right now, I'm doing this video and I'm putting myself out there. And believe me, there is part of me that's kind of embarrassed to make this video. I mean, here I am, this guy who's written books on magic and all this other stuff, and I'm telling you, like, in the midst of one of the biggest changes of my life where things didn't quite work out the way that I wanted, like, hey, here I am, here's what I'm doing. But you know what? I've always been upfront with you guys about my failures as much as my triumphs, and I always will be. I'm never going to pretend that I'm perfect or anything else. I'm not going to be like so many of those other occultists out there who act as if nothing ever goes wrong. Stuff goes wrong, shit happens, life happens, and you have a choice. Do you adjust and adapt, and do you apply magic to handle the situation, or do you just sit there and take it? Well, I'm not sitting there and taking it. I'm not letting the circumstances, as sucky as they have been, control my life. I'm acknowledging them. I'm being present with them. I'm acknowledging and being present with my emotions, but I'm pushing forward. And that's what you do when you have these moments of transition. You are going to have moments in your life where things are going to happen. You're going to lose your job. You're going to get divorced. You're going to find out that someone close to you died. You're going to have other stuff happen, and you're going to feel those moments of fear. And it's going to be scary. And that's okay. Acknowledge the fear, accept the fear. Don't try and repress it and suppress it, because that'll actually give it control over you. But then start doing whatever you can about it. Start thinking about your situation. Like in my case, it was like, okay, well, what can I do about this? Well, I can go out and Doordash, and Doordash, at least as a short-term stop measure, works great. It's helping me to bring some money in the door. It's allowing me to stay on my own schedule and work on stuff with a little more flexibility than if I was working at a daytime job. I may in the end take a daytime job for a little while if I need to. And I mean, if I do, I do. I'll do whatever I need to do, but I'll do it with the understanding that I'm doing it to get myself to a better place. I'm going to motivate myself. I'm not going to settle for less, because why should I? And of course, in the midst of all this too, I mean, I am processing the grief that I feel with the end of my marriage, for example. I mean, it's one of those cases where, you just have to be present with that too and accept that, okay, here are these things. And again, in my case, one of the reasons I took the DoorDash job, honestly, was to give myself time to think, because when you're driving all day in the car, dropping off food to other people, you have a lot of time to think. And that's been good for me, because it's helping me figure out, like, well, what do I want for the rest of my life? What do I want my life to look like? What kind of relationships, things like that. Not that I'm going to be in a relationship anytime soon. I mean, right now, I just need to be in a relationship with me. But still, I'm thinking these things through. I'm thinking about, like, what I want to do with my local community, magical community. I'm thinking about other stuff, because, as one door opens, another one, or as one door closes, another one opens. We're saying something to that effect. Well, I mean, that's really what's happening in my life. A door has closed, And now there are multiple possibilities opening up to me, and it's up to me as to what I want to do with it. So I just put that out there to you guys. Like, don't let your fear control you. Acknowledge it, be present with it, accept it, and then move forward and use whatever internal work you need to do in order to help you with that. And just remember at the end of the day that what matters the most is that you are still alive. You know, as long as you're alive, you still have options and choices. So if you are afraid and you're letting that fear control you, you have the option to do something about that. And it may not be easy. I'm not going to say it is. I mean, there are days where I really am struggling, where I'm like kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be doing this or whatever else. But then I just adjust and adapt, and I use the techniques that I've learned over the years to help me move forward. And from that, it helps me move into grace. All right, thanks for watching, and take care, guys.